What's up YouTube? Welcome back to another video of me alone in the garage. Today we're going to be working on Yuki here. We're going to be installing something where if you want to increase power on these cars, you have to do this. And that's replacing the axles with a performance axle, specifically the Moser 8.8 axle or something of the sort. I'll have it pop up somewhere. So if you want to push big power and you want to have grip when you do so, such as putting like stickier tires on, something like that, and you don't upgrade the axles, there's a good chance that you're gonna snap or bend the axles that are in there. Hence why we're upgrading them, in order to kind of future-proof our car for our later builds. Went ahead and looked in the box, and there's not much instructions. Or there is, it's about 4 steps here, but they're using terminology that I'm not familiar with, but the kind of general consensus that I'm seeing is make sure it's clean. I also checked online to see if I could find anything there, and I could not within the 5 minutes that I looked. Doesn't mean it's not out there, but I couldn't find it. I didn't feel like looking any further. So hopefully this video finds you and you guys can take away what I couldn't find. I don't think it's gonna be too difficult. I know we have to take off our tires here, our brakes, our jib-jabs. I think once we open up the differential is where I'm kind of unfamiliar with, and we'll just kind of figure it out from there. First steps first, right, is let's take the tires off. First steps down, it was already a little bit more difficult than I thought it was gonna be because the lug nuts wanted to get stuck, but next is the brakes, so pretty easy, I hope. All right, with the piston off, it wasn't that easy, or the caliper off, it wasn't that hard, just the 2 bolts there. And I always forget that I have an impact wrench until I'm like halfway done taking off the bolts. But with the caliper off, you just take off the plate just like yonder. What's this? Not a plate, it's a rotor or a disc or however you want to call it. You just take that off, and then we got the axle right here. So it's definitely crusty in here. I'm taking a look at it, and the next step right here would be to take off the ABS sensor if your car is equipped with ABS. You can find the ABS whatnot on this car, specifically in the back here. Right here, that's it right there. Sometimes it's on the front, but here it's on the back. I think it's generally opposite of the caliper, I believe. But yeah, it's just back here. So we're gonna go ahead and clean it up. These are like super fragile though, so we're gonna be careful with it and just pull that out. So I went ahead and got mine out. It's a 10 millimeter. It's super easy. I just sprayed some brake cleaner on there to clean it up, and then I sprayed some WD-40 on it just to loosen it up because I didn't want to take any chances. You know, the 10 millimeter bolt on the back side just gave it a little bit of a yiggle, and she came right out. Very easy. Shouldn't have anything to worry about unless your car's got pretty excessive miles, but we've only got like 80,000 on this chassis, so not too bad. The next step is to do everything we just did, but on the other side. So I'm not gonna show that part, it's rinse and repeat, right? All right, now that both sides are completely done, tires are off, brakes are off, and that little sensor's off, the next step is down here. We're gonna travel back down here towards our little differential right here, the back cover. There are, I believe it's 10 bolts right here. They're size 13 all the way around, all the way to the top that we're gonna take off. And I'm gonna get my drain, my old drain thing, we're gonna put it right here and catch all of that stuff. I believe it's, the oil weight is 75 by 140. 75 W140, I think it is. I'll have to check that. Now I just realized that the entire shot of me taking off these bolts was probably blurry, like I am right now. Anyways, so I went ahead and I took off every single bolt except that top one. That top one right up there is just loose. It's not all the way out yet. And that's so that when I pop it off, it doesn't just fall and make a mess. It's kind of, so it'll just hang there and hopefully just leak out. Why am I blurry? What's going on here? Unblurry me. There we go. I gotta get the oil pan drain plug thing, and then we'll get this going. The next step, after we've let it drain for a little bit, is we want to come and find this bolt right here. This bolt is keeping in this pin, and this pin is preventing us from pushing the axles in far enough in order to remove the clamp. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this, and then if you try and remove it, it's gonna start spinning things. You could try and put it in gear, and if that doesn't work, then try putting a pry bar up there to get this from spinning. But we're gonna go ahead and take this bolt out, and that pin should drop right out. There we go. Come on now. All right, there's the bolt. Slides right out, easy day. So with the drive shaft turned just a little bit, I can go ahead and let this slide out. Just like so. And then drop it everywhere. And I've left plenty of room, I think, to be able to push the axle in and remove the clip. I think. This is all in theory. I guess the next step is to push the axles in and see if we can see the retaining clip, and we'll move on from there. So with all of that out, that pin out, everything should be able to move nice and freely. We're just gonna move the axle and push it in as far as possible, and that should let us see that C-clip and pull it out. So again, it's just real in like that. We'll do that on both sides, but we'll do the driver's side first. Spin. Push. Oh. Oh, shit. Oh. Well, there it is. There it is. That's our C-clamp right there, or C-clip or whatever. I just spun it to the other side and poked it out, and then kind of just fell. But our axle should just slide right out now. So we're gonna try that real quick. All right, now when taking this out, you know, everyone everywhere says be careful with taking it out. You don't want it to drag or anything like that. So you should kind of just, this thing's heavy. Support it as much as possible. This thing is heavy. Just like that. One side out, one more to go. Should be freaking rinse and repeat on the other side. Here we got it. We got the new Moser 8.8 axles, which will help us with our 1,000 horsepower goal, adding some reliability to it. The next step is to make these look like these. There's a small O-ring here that we have to transfer over here. I don't know what the O-ring's for, but we gotta do it. Maybe some like noise dampening somethings or whatever. The next thing that we have to transfer over is this ring right here. This is for our ABS. This is how it senses how fast we're going or whatever. Figure out how to take this off and put it here. I'm pretty sure it's just pressed on there, and it'll take a little bit of elbow grease to get it off and press it back over here. And then lastly, what we have to do is take our little studs here for our lug nuts, and I'll put new ones on here because these ones are all rusted and not so pretty, even though they're working just fine. And then I gotta take this sticker off too. I think that's all that we have to do before we can start installing it real quick. All right, slight change of plans. It's been a few days now since I started working on this. I was waiting for some parts to come in, specifically the ABS rings that I got right here. I decided to go ahead and put new ones on there since it's a new axle and I got new wheel studs. So everything's gonna be brand new. I figured that would be the best way to go about it. These are only about 40 bucks or so. I found them on Ford's website. I'll go ahead and put the part number down below if you guys want that. I figured it'd also just be easier than trying to take it off the old ones. So if your car is ABS equipped, which most of them are, I assume if you have a 13 to 14 or something like that, most of the time you're gonna need like some sort of press, like a hydraulic press to put these on. However, I went around trying to find a hydraulic press or a shop that had a press for a very long time, and pretty much none of the shops that had presses wanted to touch it because there's a good chance that it's gonna break, and I just so didn't want to buy a press, which I would only use once. So we're gonna try something else different here. A little bit of science here. When metal gets hot, it expands, so we're gonna throw this in the oven. 400 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 15 minutes or so, give or take, and we'll try and put it on that way. We'll see if it works. But yeah, if you have a press, I guess you could try that too. It's only 40 bucks, so if it breaks, 40 bucks. But we're gonna try the oven trick because I don't have a press, and none of the shops around here that have presses would touch it. I went ahead and also got brand new O-rings for it because I didn't feel like taking them off the old ones and breaking them. So I've got brand new ones. I'll also leave those parts numbers in the description as well. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So here it's been about 15 minutes in the oven at 400. You just want to line it up pretty close, okay-ish. And then I'm going to take my dead blow here and I'm going to slowly beat around it. This isn't something that you really should rush, I suppose, but if it starts to cool down, just take it off and put it back in the oven. Just like one quick whack here, turn it. You want to try and put it on as even as possible. All right, she's all the way on there. Cool beans. And it's still hot, so I'm gonna give it a few more whacks. Looking at it real quickly, it looks like it's all the way on. So for this one, for instance, you can have a clear line all the way across, so you know that she's on all the way. And for things like this, there are a clearance to it. If you're concerned about the tolerance, you just take a good old freaking caliper here. It's a digital caliper from like Harbor Freight. It's like $7. Just measure the distance from here, that bottom ring, for this instance, the bottom ring here to the flat part here. If you don't know for your specific build, since I don't even really know for this one, what I did was I took the caliper and I measured the distance for the old one, and then I measured the distance for the new one. And it's the same thing. So if it worked on the old one, it's gotta work for the new one, right? And that's it. That's as simple as it gets. You don't need to press, and it worked absolutely just fine. It was in the oven for maybe 15 minutes or so, give or take. And then you just kind of go around, work it, and hammer it. All right, having a slight hiccup here. Probably should have put in these wheel studs before I put on the ABS rings. That way I don't hit it. I've hit it a few times. It's not going in all the way, so what I'm gonna try something here with the tire and the bolts and the lug nuts, and we'll see if it works. Just bear with me for a second. So this isn't my ideal setup, and you guys won't have to do this if you do it in the right order, unlike I did. But what I've gone ahead and did is I have my real wheel here with the axle attached to it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking, the wheel stud, and I'm threading it through the hole here, and I'm taking my lug nut, and I'm screwing it on, and then I'm taking my socket, tightening it up as much as I can, and then once she's getting pretty on there, I take my impact, I'm tightened, and I tighten it up the rest of the way. And from me tightening it, it pulls the nut or the bolt or whatever the rest of the way through and gets it nice and flush. I don't think this is the preferred method, and I don't think you guys should really try this unless you fuck up like I did. But I mean, it works. I've already done it twice. All right, now that I've got all the wheel studs on, or on enough, the next step is to go ahead and put it in here. I think the instructions say that we want to make sure that there's no buildup of grease or anything right through here, as if you guys can see that. Buildup of grease right through here. Make sure it's all good and clean and pretty, which I think it's decent. So we're gonna go ahead and slide this in. Again, we don't want it to drag or anything like that. Not that I have a lot of room here. There's a little bit of a lip. That'll do for now. I'll have to go underneath and figure out why it's not going any further, but. All right, so again, with the hardest lighting down here, we were able to get the passenger side in. Basically, there's splines, which you can see those splines right there. That is the driver's side, and that is the passenger side axle. We just gotta line up those splines, and that's why it wasn't going all the way through. So it just takes a little bit of yiggling to figure that out. Easy day, everything is all the way installed there. The next step, to take our little C-clips here. I don't know where the other one is. Oh, it's right here. I'm gonna clean these off real quick because they've got like some dust and some fur and stuff on them. So I'm gonna clean them off real quick, and then we're gonna slide them up back to where we removed them. So after I put those C-pins back in, I went ahead and put that center bolt rod thing back in. A little spin, and I'll show you. Put this one back in. This bolt, I think, has like a torque spec of like 15 inch-pounds or whatever, but there's like no way I was gonna get something in there to get an accurate torque, so I just made it snug. But the next step is to go ahead and clean up our surface around here. And to clean this up real quick, make it all pretty looking, so we can put it back on and fill her up. All right, so with this all clean, fine, and dandy, it's time to finally make our gaskets. We're gonna be using this gasket maker gear oil. It's specifically designed for transmissions and rear diffs and whatnot, transfer cases or whatever. According to the instructions on the back, which I've read, we're gonna go ahead and make a bead all the way around, surrounding all the bolt holes that we got, and then we're gonna finger tighten these bolts onto the diff until we get a little bit of a squeeze coming out from the sides. At that point in time, we'll stop, take a break, come back in an hour, and then we'll tighten it down to torque spec, which I have to figure out what that is. And then we'll let it dry for another 24 hours before we fill it up with our good old fluid. So this was quite the mess. I've never had this happen to me before, but yeah. But, so I gotta quickly go ahead and screw it all on real quick before this starts to dry, and then as soon as it starts to, you know, spread, we'll stop there. All right, so it is the next day. I didn't film actually me putting on the bolts, strictly because of how gunky my hands had gotten from the gasket maker, which had never happened before. I don't know why that happened this time, but whatever. I had to act quick, and I didn't want all that stuff all over the camera, so I didn't record it, but I'll go ahead and show you it real quick. Just right here, you can actually see the bead come off right there where it was coming out just a little bit. That's when I stopped tightening it, and then once it was all the way good, after an hour or so, I went ahead and torqued it down in like somewhat of a star pattern or whatever at shoot, I think it was 25 foot-pounds is the consensus that I got off of the good old internets. So that's what I went with. I went with 25 foot-pounds. The next step is to actually fill it up, and I went ahead and already put both tires on as well, since, you know, that's easy stuff. Brakes back on, tires on, easy day. But the next step is to fill this up, and then once that's filled up, we can lower the car. So I'll go ahead and show you where the fill port is. It's on the other side. So with the front side that we were just at, you come on back here and you see our little exhaust here, and you can see the fill, kind of. This little bulge right here is the fill point. I'll get a better angle. There it is. You can see it right there. That's what we're gonna crack open. It's like it's a 3/8 drive. If you can fit a ratchet up there, great. I'm gonna use an extension, like a 2-inch extension with a ratchet, and pop that off. Alrighty then. Now that we got all that done, we got a few products here. I went with Mobile One. I prefer Mobile One. You know, I've been doing Mobile One for freaking a good freaking about a time now, so I just kind of stick with Mobile One off of like brand loyalty. But this boy right here, this bad boy right here, Ford calls for a friction modifier to be put into the rear diff as well. So clearly this would be a little bit difficult to get up into the right position to get that entire thing in there. So I went ahead and bought one of these. It's a little pump thing. We're just gonna screw it onto the top of here and then just pump, and it should go on in. And then we'll throw this doohickey in there, and then continue on until she starts to overflow. And once it starts to overflow, we'll put the drain plug or the fill plug back on, and we'll call it a day. So, all right, once you've filled it all the way up, you know that she's full because she starts leaking out and making a mess all over the place. So once you've done that, you want to go ahead and just put your drain plug, which you've already cleaned, right, and put it right back in there. All right, and once you've got this in, you want to go ahead and tighten it down to like, I think it's like 20 or 30 foot-pounds. So we're gonna go with 25 today. And if you really want, you can get all this oil on your exhaust. That way when you start your car, you get a big cloud of smoke. That's if you're feeling fancy. And that's it, easy day. Not so easy. I had a lot of problems doing this, and it took way too long. I think minimum this could take about 2 days, and I think I stretched it for about 2 weeks. But that's just my luck, it's whatever. Everything's done now, everything's where it should be. She's ready to drive. My only thing is that I'm missing a few lug nuts now because of the whole problem I had. So I've only got 2 lug nuts on this tire, right there and right there. Not a big issue. I'll just get better lug nuts. But yeah, that's it. It was a mess. Gear oil smells very bad, and it's just a very dirty process. But I don't think it's that bad. I think it was my first time doing it, and yeah, I didn't think it was too bad. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed watching. I appreciate you guys getting this far. If you have, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. Subscribe if you want to. It's completely free. You can always change your mind later. But yeah, until next time, deuces.